Future Tech Winners, this is your host, Chris. I want to welcome you back to the JumpStart IT Academy YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be going over the H-1B visa debate. Some of you have probably been looking at this or hearing about this and wanted someone to basically demystify it and just, make it make sense. So that's what I plan on doing today. Without further ado, we're going to be looking at a video. I'm going to be reacting to a video from Valutainment. It's Patrick Bet David. This is his platform. So I like his content. So if you're interested in this content, go ahead and consider going over to his platform and subscribing. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Give value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. By the way, I got a bunch of data I want to get into. What country applies for H-1B the most? Where we ranked in the world in STEM against other countries? What the highest paying jobs in America are, yet the degrees that kids are going into, and what degrees are decreasing, which is very weird. And you have to realize this is a competition argument that everybody's making. Some want the jobs to go to Americans. Some are saying let it go to the best people. But regardless, we have to compete in math. We have to compete in engineering. We have to compete in STEM. If we're not, and we're getting psychology degrees instead of STEM degrees, the direction is going AI and technology, we're going to get our asses handed to us long term. But let's set that aside. Quotes. This is what some people said about H-1B for and against.
Essentially, what he's saying is that America needs to be competitive. That's just basic. I mean, we have to be competitive. I know the means in which America is using to be competitive can be questioned and is considered questionable. And I'm only speaking in the context of H-1B visa. I don't want your mind to go off into any other different areas. So I want to keep boundaries to the discussion and what we're talking about. But that's what he's basically saying. America has to compete globally for the labor forces required for them to produce their products and services. Therefore, if they completely rely upon the resources that are available in America, here's a question. Is that enough? Is that sufficient for us or America to be competitive in the global marketplace when competing to build the best products and services, and also when competing for the resources who can pull it off?
Against. Elon said, the reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of the H-1B. Take a big step back and F yourself in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. The number of people who are super talented engineers and super motivated in the U.S. is far too low. Think of this like a pro sports team. If you want your team to win the championship, you need to recruit top talent wherever they may be from. That's Elon. By the way, a lot of people are like, well, this is why all he cares about is the money and cheap labor. He's not even in the top 20 of H-1B visas. But let's go to Steve Bannon.
In other words, he's not even in the top 20. So therefore, you can see that he's stern or he's very, rigid in his approach towards, or he's positioned where he wants to be in support of H-1B visa. But it's not based on a bias because he's not even one of the top 20 employers that use H-1B visas. So therefore, there has to be something else that's causing him to be so passionate about supporting H-1B visas.
Strategist, a lot of people love to hear what this guy has to say. Let me be clear. On H-1B, I want zero. This whole thing about, oh, they're only geniuses, H-1B visas, that's not what it's about. It's about taking American jobs and bringing over essentially what have become indentured servants at lower wages. The thing's a scam by the oligarchs in Silicon Valley to basically take jobs from American citizens, give them to what become indentured servants from foreign countries, and pay them less. Simple. I've long said the current H-1B system is badly broken and needs to be gutted. It shouldn't use a lottery. It should be based on pure merit. It shouldn't tether workers to just one corporation. Same principles I favor today. American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over math Olympia champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. That's Vivek. Now, Ron DeSantis simply said, I don't support undercutting American wages. And when it comes to Trump, I want to read two of them. One of them is from March 3rd, 2016, in his interview with Megyn Kelly, and one from today. In 2016, he said, I will end forever the use of the H-1B as a cheap labor program and institute an absolute requirement to hire American workers first for every visa and immigration program, no exception. So he wants to make America first on hiring, right? Today, he said, I have many H-1B visas on my properties. I've been a believer in the H-1B. I've used it many times. It's a great program. I've always liked the visas. That's his position today. So it seems like the party is...
All right, so let's just take a look at this. So we see Elon Musk. Elon Musk is basically saying that he's supporting H-1B visas. Then we get, and he's saying he's supporting it, flat out, he'll go to war on this issue. So that's a really, sensitive topic for him, for those who oppose him. And we know that he doesn't, he's not one of the top 20, or his organizations are in the top 20 companies that use H-1B visas. So there has to be another reason as far as why Elon Musk wants to use the H-1B visas. Now, the second one is the Ramaswamy, Mr. Ramaswamy. Okay, so he's basically saying that it supports mediocrity, because it uses a lottery system and it's not based on merit. And then Steve Bannon basically says that the H-1B visas has taken American jobs. And then Trump in 2016 did not support H-1B visas. He says basically it's a way to gain cheap labor. And it aligned at that time with Steve Bannon, who was in his office during his 2016 cabinet when he was president. Now Donald Trump has switched and says he has many H-1B visa workers or employees that work for him. So I want you to understand what we're looking at here. All right, so Elon Musk is a business owner. He's an entrepreneur. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur or business owner. Steve Bannon, I don't think he's an entrepreneur or a business owner. I'm not too sure what his background is. I just know that he's a political thinker. But I also look at Donald Trump. He's an entrepreneur, plus he's a politician, and he's coming in with a blended approach towards this, with an understanding to be able to shift and adjust, because that's what entrepreneurs have to do. They have to be forward thinking and realistic and pragmatic about the decisions that they make. So I want you to understand who's saying what, okay? So you'll understand why they're saying it. And just in a nutshell, just in brief summary, and looking at these different opinions, what you want to understand is that every single one of their positions carries an element of truth. I understand why Elon Musk would say he's going to, die on that mountain. You know what I mean? That's where he's going to go to full war and to keep H-1B visas. And he has a point to make in that America needs to be competitive. Vivek Ramaswamy, he has a point in that it is supporting mediocrity, because it's based on a system where they're basically raffling to figure out who wins the lottery to be able to come over to America and take these jobs. So therefore, you're not really getting the best candidates who are coming over here. Now, the wages that they have, and maybe we'll get into it on this video, but the wages that the top wages, I believe, that an earner can make for having 5 to 10 years of experience, meaning a very seasoned professional that can come over here and win the lottery, can make at cap, I think, $93,000. Now, most of those jobs with someone who's adept or skilled in what they're doing to make $93,000, and compared to somebody in America, that particular job, most likely in a STEM related position, would be in the mid-high 6 figures. So therefore, it is true that there is a saving of labor wages that's being saved with the H-1B visa, but we have to we have to be very real about it. If you do decrease the amount of money that it costs for a labor, and the labor is just as skilled as the labor in America, the company's going to choose the labor elsewhere. Okay.
Is split on it, or are they? Maybe it's just the fact that they want to make it tighter so there's no abuse, and there's some changes to simplify it. But however, before we get into that, let's just kind of learn a little bit about the H-1B visa and how it works, okay? So when you think about H-1B visa, the definition is a non-immigrant visa allowing U.S. employees to hire foreign workers in specialty occupations requiring advanced knowledge and a bachelor's degree or higher. This was created in 1990 under President Bush. Purpose was to address...
Okay, so on the surface, you would look at this and you would say, All right, I think that what's happening here is that the Republicans are wanting to support H-1B visa, and that's not really the case. Now, I know this is not a political channel, but we need to talk about the politics because these are politicians that we're talking about, or people who are involved in the political arena. So we can see that it was introduced by President Bush, and he was running as a Republican. He was a Republican president. We can also see that we have Republicans who are disputing and debating this issue. And the reality of it is this. The reality is this: America is in the global marketplace and competing with their organizations or corporations with their products and services with other foreign or international companies that are seeking the same labor pool because it's a global economy to be able to produce their products and services. So in order for America to compete in this global marketplace, they're going to need H-1B visas. That's just I have to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm going to let you know if you are against H-1B visas, America needs it. Now, on the surface, I'll tell you the truth. It's like at around 2009, 2010, I worked for a utility company and they had a lot of H-1B hires. And initially, I can see the point of view of Steve Bannon because that was my point of view. I said, why are you bringing these people over here when there's people already here that you can train? Well, the difference is the people they're bringing over here are already capable of taking on the responsibilities of these positions. So it's ready-made skills. Whereas in America, the skills are not ready yet. The pool is not equipped to be able to deliver the craftsmanship of what's required in that position. Now, my argument to support Steve Bannon's position is that my thought was if you had a 10, 20, 30 years ago gone into some of these areas where these people need resources and want opportunity, then these resources, this labor pool could have been created and we wouldn't have had to go out to another nation using H-1B visas to export talent into America, or excuse me, import talent into America from another country's exports. Now, that's just the facts. So I do understand the element of truth of Steve Bannon is saying. I also understand what Elon Musk is saying, because if you get rid of H-1B visas, American companies most likely will not be able to compete. They will be in a talent shortage, and that talent shortage will have dire, I believe, consequences and repercussions for these companies, making them less competitive and giving other international organizations and corporations a more of a competitive advantage. Now, when I look at Vivek Ramaswamy, what I see is this. I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly, and if so, if not, forgive me. But when I look at his position, I know what he's talking about. You got to get rid of the raffle system, because the raffle system isn't really getting the top people, the so-called superstars that Elon Musk was talking about, because you can have a LeBron James in technology and you can have a bench warmer in technology. And if the bench warmer wins the lottery, then the LeBron James stays over there in that foreign country and they bring over the bench warmer. So it's disingenuous for Elon Musk to say that, knowing that the lottery exists and the lottery does not select the best, it selects whoever gets selected in the lottery. So therefore, Elon Musk has a point, Vivek Ramaswamy, he has a point, Steve Bannon has a point, and Donald Trump has a point. And if you look at Donald Trump's position, he's the one that's basically evolving properly and maturely with this particular situation, in that there needs to be a middle ground. And the middle ground is this: the program needs to be adjusted. It doesn't need to be getting rid of, because if you get rid of it, the corporations in America will not be competitive globally. That will impact the overall economy. If it impacts the overall economy in one way or another, it's going to trickle down and affect other industries, and it will somehow, some way affect you. That's just the truth. So therefore, I say you don't, as Steve Bannon would say, you don't totally get rid of it. I wouldn't be so gung ho as Elon Musk is. I'd be in the middle, sort of like how Trump is, where Trump is understanding. Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy, they're understanding that Trump knows that there needs to be an evolution in maturity and switching over to it instead of being against it. And Vivek Ramaswamy is correct in that there needs to be some level of modification. So that's the neutral point. The neutral point is keep it, but make certain modifications, such as this. I would say, if the top pay is $93,000 and the American is competing for that same job and he's charging 100, or in the fair market for his wages is $150,000, then the companies are automatically going to select the person who's in the foreign country because it's just cheaper labor for them. So that is the truth. Well, if you adjusted that threshold and you made it equal playing ground where that position that they were all competing for is $150,000, then the American is seeing the position as $150,000, but the foreigner is seeing it as $93,000. The corporation is going to see it as, if you had a pie that costs $4 and then you could buy it for $1.50 or $2, you would buy it at the cheaper cost because it's the same pie. So therefore, there needs to be a level playing ground in terms of the cost for the labor. If there's a level playing ground for the cost of the labor, I bet you certain employers would start looking at the talent that's already in America. I don't think this is so much of a talent shortage. I think that's somewhat of a veneer as their argument. I think what they're arguing is that the bottom line is they want to save money on labor resources. For an entrepreneur or business owner, labor is usually the highest cost. That's just the facts. So therefore, if they can reduce their highest costs on their revenue, it increases more profits, which in turn gives them more opportunity and reduces their risk to basically the vulnerability of the price changes in the labor pool for the cost of labor. Continuing.
Address the skill shortages in critical industries, particularly STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And the key features of the H-1B visa: number one, eligibility, specialty occupations requiring specific educational qualifications. Two, it's 3 years, initially extendable to up to 6 years with green card exceptions. Three, capping quotas, annual cap of 85,000 visas with 20,000 reserved for U.S.'s master's degree holders. Four, application process: employer files the LCA, submits form I-129, and worker applies through a U.S. embassy. Five, wage requirements: employers must pay H-1B holders the prevailing wages for their roles. And there's 4 levels. You'll notice here, level 1 is the lower entry level. Experience is 0 to 2 years. You would get a salary at this level between $38,000 to $51,000 a year. 2, moderate 2 to 5 years of experience. In this area, experienced financial analyst, mid-level project coordinator is 51 to 65. Level 3, it's higher, 5 to 10 years experience, 65 to 75. And level 4, 10 plus years, $78,000 to $90,000 a year. So part of the argument here, which makes sense, is it's cheaper labor than hiring those positions in America. So hey, I'd much rather hire these guys because boom, they're cheaper than hiring American. This part, an absolute correct argument that they need to match the salaries to be the same. So the employer only hires somebody from IIT because they think the IIT engineer is going to be better than the MIT engineer, even though I have to pay them the same amount of money without a...
In other words, in terms of the cost of labor, make it an even playing field, because the way it stands right now, the American workers are at a disadvantage because their wages are higher because our cost of living is higher in our country, basically, and our lifestyle and our quality of life. That's just the way it works. Even if you look at a job, I'm a network engineer. Okay, so if you look at a network engineer getting hired in Los Angeles versus a network engineer getting hired in the South, it's going to be a significant price difference, and they even reflect that in the job description. They'll tell you by region the salary that they're going to pay you. So that's just the way it is because of the cost of living and living in America. But if you get someone from another country who isn't even used to the high quality of life that we live in America, they're going to be willing to take a $93,000 job for doing $150,000 equivalent level of work. They're going to be able to receive that and accept that. But you get an American worker, they're not going to take such a price reduction, because if their lifestyle is at a certain level, they need to make a certain amount in terms of salary requirements. American workers aren't going to budge on that.
A consulting firm taking 20% or half the salary, which that's a whole separate conversation we'll get into. Number 6, portability: workers can switch employers if proper filings are made. And 7, dual intent allows holders to apply for permanent residency while on the visa. Now, a part of the argument here happens when somebody is coming in and you give them the H-1B visa. The company sometimes bullies the employees with the fear of, if you don't do this, we're going to do this to you, because they feel like they made that investment. The employer, has to pay $10,000 to $20,000 to have them become legal so they can work here. So there is some abuse that happens there. So that's how.
All right. So when he's talking about the abuse, I've heard rumors of this type of abuse. Well, employers will bring over these H-1B visa workers, and then they will not treat them good. And Americans wouldn't tolerate that type of that type of treatment. But these workers will tolerate it because they don't have any other choice. So in a sense, I think Steve Banning was saying it, they are indentured servants, and that the employer has control over them than they would in comparison to an American citizen. American citizen, if you threaten them, they'll go to equal opportunity employers or EEO. They'll file some type of complaints. They an American will sue the company, because we understand how the laws work in America, and we know how to protect ourselves from an abusive employer. But with the H-1B visa, these people who are coming over, they won't have access to the protection given to American employers. So therefore, the companies are able to have a certain level of control over them that they otherwise would not have with American workers. And that's just the facts.
How it works. Now, the argument for it and against it, this is what you'll hear. Economic contribution and innovation, talent shortages in critical industries, STEM, which I'll give you the data here in a minute, competitiveness on the global stage, economic multiplier effect, dual intent, and long-term contribution. And in arguments against it, wage suppression, displacement of U.S. workers, exploitation of outsourcing firms. This is real, by the way. This happens. And these guys, there's a lot of bullies here. Companies like Infosys and TCS that file bulk applications, reducing opportunities for smaller firms. Abuse of third-party placement contracts have been well documented. You can look into this. It's all over the place.
So essentially, they're saying that because these big companies are able to get H-1B visas, it sort of puts the smaller companies at a disadvantage because they aren't able to do the same thing. So that's what he's talking about.
It's some of the lawsuits we talked about earlier. Lack of domestic workforce development and lottery system inefficiency. Instead of us...
Okay, when I said lack of development of workforce, locally, that's what I was talking about. That should have been done 10, 20 years ago. That's what I saw. When I started really thinking about this, I said, you know what? It kind of, it made my blood boil, because I know that there are Americans who are struggling. Okay. And so me being, very successful in tech and seeing all these opportunities being, consumed by people who we would consider foreigners, it just doesn't seem right that I have neighbors who are losing their houses in foreclosures, or unable to put their children in the schools that they want to put them in. But then you have a foreigner come over here and be able to live in the same middle class neighborhood as somebody who has been working in America for 10, 20, 30 years, or their family's been in America for hundreds of years. It just doesn't seem right. But the reality is, in terms of, the labor that's in America and the opportunities that are being missed out, and because the Americans aren't being developed, that should have been done a long time ago. Because it wasn't done, hey, you're talking about planting a tree. The best time to plant a tree, it was 10, 20 years ago. That would have been great. But now the best time to do it now. And if the H-1B visa allows us to ship over a fully big giant tree, instead of waiting 10, 20 years for it to develop here in America, then America's going to have to ship, the talent who's already fully developed, and plant them right in those corporations so they can just keep going.
Choosing the best, you got to get lucky to come here, but maybe we didn't get the best one. Why not get the best one? Imagine if you're running a small business and you do 8 interviews. Imagine if the way of hiring one of them is a lottery system. Somebody draws it and one of the 8 gets hired. Instead of the best employee that you wanted was Mary, you get Bob. You wanted Mary, but it's a lottery system. Wouldn't you rather choose Mary over Bob? That would be the merit-based system. And last but not least, fraud and loopholes. This is the lawsuit we talked about earlier with Infosys, $34 million, Apple. Okay, so now Americans, we're typically known for being very competitive, right? We love to win. We love to be number one. America first, all that stuff. Let's look at some data. STEM. When you want to go into STEM, what's one of the most important subjects in school that typically India, Middle East, Asia is obsessed with, where America will rank 34th in? You know what it is? Math. Americans are no longer competing in math the way we did. Out of 80 countries on this OECD countries list, we placed 34th in math. That's horrible. We're 16th in science. That is terrible. By the way, then I look at the data to see what country, like, Dad, what do I do when I grow up? You go become whatever you want to be, babe. Go be a school teacher. Go be a philosopher. Go be a psychologist. Study fine arts. You know what other parents say, you're going into STEM. Oh, why are you judging me? Because one day you're going to have a wife and kids, and life's going to be expensive, and you have to be competitive. Let me follow my passion. Okay, honey, go to fine arts. Joey, leave her alone and him alone. You go get your fine arts degree, sweetheart. Do whatever you want to do.
Okay, so what he's basically getting at is this. That's literally, you know, proverbially in a nutshell, what's happening in America. These conversations are taking place in some context to some degree. In reality, maybe not the way he's, you know, jokingly, you know, going back and forth with his banter. Maybe not like that, but something of the same effect is taking place because statistics show that Americans are studying psychology degrees and philosophy and all of these, you know, subjects that really are not involved with STEM. In order to in order to get these technology jobs, they need people who have STEM backgrounds, technology, science, and, you know, engineering and math. And Americans just aren't favoring that. The other nations are. So therefore, hey, America is not developed, and America is not developed because the school system and the education system really isn't being realistic about what the corporations need. So there is a break, there's a gap. And the gap is this. The gap is that we should be what's called extrapolating. We should be looking at what the corporations need, and that should influence the education system, because the whole purpose of an education should be to be able to apply that knowledge in a corporation. But that's not the case. What's happening is that the education institutions are pretty much putting knowledge or putting ideas and counsel into the young people's minds or people's minds. And these people are coming out of the education system and their skills don't match the jobs that are available. So therefore, I mean, America is strategically being inefficient and non-productive, but yet these companies have to be productive. So since America is, you know, inputting the students into their education system, the output of their students cannot match the input of these companies need, then the companies, what do? They go H-1B visa, and then they find somebody who is STEM oriented in another nation that values STEM and has an education system that's tied to reality of what the corporations need. They bring these H-1B visa holders over, they input them into the corporations, and the output is quality products and services. That is the reality of it. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to stop right there, and you can watch that video at your own leisure, but I'm going to bring this in right here because I want you to understand comparative advantage. This is what's happening here. This is an economic term. So comparative advantage is the ability of an economy to produce a given good or service in a more efficient and economically competitive manner than its peers. Okay, so let's just look at this. Look at it like this. Okay, and I'm going to make this as simple as I can. So let's say America produces mangoes and apples, and let's say another nation produces mangoes and apples. But let's just say that America produces more apples than mangoes. But let's say this other country produces more mangoes than apples. Now they can grow apples as well in America. You know, converse or inversely, America could grow, or this country can grow more apples, but American can grow more mangoes. But what they can do is look at the opportunity cost, and they could say, you know what, America, why don't you grow the apples and we will grow the mangoes, and then we will trade. And that's essentially, in my opinion, what's happening here. These other nations are producing the labor pool of talent with skills, and America is producing the jobs through these corporations that America has. And essentially, what's happening is it's a good trade. You know, these other countries can seek to compete and build the corporations that will compete with America's companies, but then they have such a strong and a large labor pool, they might as well just trade, you know, trade labor, trade their labor for the opportunity, and then these countries can pay them, you know, the resources for trading for that labor, which is a salary. So that's what it looks like to me. um, I would be interested to know, you know, what your opinion is on this matter. But that's the H-1B visa. You know, that's the explanation of it. I know it's controversial. I know people don't want to hear the truth about the H-1B visa, but that's the truth, at least from the information I've looked at and researched. And the truth is, it just needs to be retooled, because if you get rid of it, America wouldn't be competitive. And if you keep it and you're gung ho and you don't make modifications, it's going to be a disadvantage to American workers. I think what we need to do is we need to find a good medium, a good balance, and then once it's level set, then we should move forward, but make it equitable for both the H-1B visa candidates, and make it equitable and competitive for the American workers as well. You all know, if there's any comments as far as, why is he saying this and why is he in agreement with H-1B? It's not that I'm in agreement with H-1B visa. It's that, I'm a veteran myself. I served in the Air Force. So my my loyalty to this country can't even be questioned. You know what I mean? Because I've already put my life on the line for this nation. But what I'm doing is I'm having integrity for being an engineer in tech, and I'm having integrity for being a veteran. And I would have to say this is just my balanced opinion of it all. But I am interested to know what you think. Go ahead and put your comments in the comment section, and I'm going to put a link in the description for the Valutainment video and the comparative advantage that came from Investopedia. So I want to give credit to them. And I just want to thank you for watching this video. So salute. I will, if you like what you heard, go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and, like I said, leave your comments, share the video, and share the word. Salute. I'll see you in the next video.